This was supposed to be the project of my dreams. I had bought a plot of land in an abandoned village on the bank of a river. The location was perfect. The river was full of big fish, and across the water stood a dense, thick forest. The air was filled with the scent of pine resin and freshness. I wanted to build a tourist lodge here, a cozy little spot for people who love fishing and quiet relaxation in nature. I imagined new cabins with terraces rising from where the dilapidated wooden ruins now stood. It all started with a burst of energy. I ordered all the necessary materials and hired a construction crew. The old shacks were slated for demolition. The foreman, Vasily Anatolievich, whom I simply called Anatolievich, was an experienced man in his field. It seemed like projects of this scale were a piece of cake for him, and everything would be done right on schedule. The first few months went by like clockwork. Anatolievich sent me photos and videos of the progress almost every day. Things were moving fast, but then, something went wrong. The construction slowed down. The foreman called it minor difficulties. 2 houses were already finished, but the third had been sitting half done for a month. Nothing on the site was changing. I decided to drive out there myself to find out the reason for the delays. The atmosphere was sluggish. A few workers milled about aimlessly, like lost souls. Anatolievich was sitting in his trailer, shuffling through papers with a dejected look on his face, scratching the back of his head. "We're short on manpower," he said, responding to my questions. "A few of the guys quit recently." "Why?" I asked, surprised. Anatolievich just shrugged. "Everyone has their reasons." I had a feeling he wasn't telling me everything, but I just asked, "So how many people are left?" "Besides me? 5, the foreman said with a sigh. 5. I couldn't believe it. The crew had shrunk by more than half, and I knew nothing about it. "It was an unforeseen problem," Anatolievich said apologetically. "We're already working on finding new builders." I apologize for how this turned out. I stepped outside, nervously smoked a cigarette, and headed for my car. I got in, slammed the door shut, and tried to calm myself down. Maybe there's nothing to worry about. Things like this probably happen on construction sites all the time. How would I know? This is my first time doing this. I hadn't even started the engine when another worker ran up to my car. An unshaven guy with tired eyes and a weary face. He motioned for me to lower the window. "Hey, you the owner here?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. "I want to quit and get my final pay," he announced suddenly. I immediately demanded an explanation. "What's going on? Is there a problem with the team? Did the foreman do something? Is the pay not good enough? What is it?" "This place is bad," the man said, glancing around nervously. "It's terrifying. We're grown men, and we can't sleep at night. We're scared. I've seen a lot in my life, but never anything like this." "And what exactly have you seen here?" I asked, not believing what I was hearing. "You spend one night here, and you'll find out for yourself," the builder said before walking away. I looked around. The day was overcast, the sky shrouded in clouds. The water in the river looked murky, and the forest across it was as black as night. I had bought this place because I was charmed by it, but at that moment, an inexplicable sense of dread made me doubt my decision. I decided to stay and personally oversee the process until the work got back on track. The next time I arrived at the construction site, it was late in the evening. It was dark everywhere. Everyone had vanished. There wasn't a living soul around. The only light came from the foreman's trailer. I knocked, and Anatolievich opened the door. He was dead drunk. "Boss, get in, quick, and lock the door," he said, trying to speak clearly. I stepped inside, filled with rage. The muscles in my jaw tensed, and my fingers clenched into tight fists. A storm was brewing inside me. On the table sat a nearly empty bottle of vodka, with a new, unopened one right next to it. I lost it and started yelling. "So this is what's going on. This is why the construction has stopped. The foreman is drinking on the job." "Don't be mad, boss," Anatolievich replied, his voice devoid of guilt. "This is the first time, I swear." He closed the door, collapsed onto a chair, and shamelessly poured himself another shot of vodka. "Where are all the workers?" My hands were shaking with anger. I wanted to grab his bottle and smash it against the wall. "No one's left," the foreman said sadly. "It dragged 2 more of them away. The rest left." "What do you mean, dragged away?" I asked, unable to make sense of his drunken rambling. "Here, sit with me," Anatolievich said, pulling a second chair up to the table. That hook-handed thing shouldn't come back tonight. But we better not go outside." Let's just sit here until morning and hope 2 guys were enough for it. Then, in the morning, we'll get the hell out of here quietly. My anger subsided slightly. I realized something serious was going on. After all, the foreman was a respectable man with a good reputation. There had to be a powerful reason for this kind of behavior. And even if he was just spewing nonsense, it didn't explain why the workers had fled one after another. Are you going to tell me what happened? I asked, sitting down next to him. Have a drink with me, Anatolich said, pushing his glass toward me. It'll be easier for you to understand. I'll tell you everything. I'll confess. Confess to what? I asked cautiously. Come on, just one shot, the foreman insisted, nudging the bottle. Honestly, I can't stand vodka, but in that desperate situation, I wanted something to take the edge off. I reluctantly took the glass, downed it quickly, and started coughing. Anatolich refilled the glass, stared at it for a moment, then sighed. What have I done? He said. My guys died for nothing. This whole place is being built on the blood of innocent people. There shouldn't be any tourist lodge here. I should have told you that from the start, but I kept hiding it from you. I started to get angry again. Stop beating around the bush. What is going on here? It's devil's work, all of it, the foreman replied thoughtfully. It was here long before we started building. Remember when we were tearing down the old houses with the excavator? There was something you didn't see. When we demolished the first house and cleared the debris, we found a cellar underneath it. Inside were 2 human mummies. People had died in there and just dried up. We hadn't even figured out what to do with them when we found another skeleton under a different house. And it was the same with the 3rd house. Human bones in every cellar, under every floor. People were hiding from something, and they died right there. Hiding from what? I asked, thinking he was just spouting drunken nonsense. Are you finishing that first bottle, or did you have 2 more before this? I'm telling you the truth, I swear, Anatolich insisted. The guys and I realized you bought this land without knowing about the bones. I got scared. I thought if we told you, you'd change your mind about building here, and we'd already spent most of our advance payment. Besides, we were all counting on finishing this project quickly and getting our money. There was no going back. So, we decided to gather up all those dried up corpses and bury them somewhere far away. He sounded convincing. I believed him. Suddenly, I wanted another drink. So, what did that mean? They had sold me some kind of mass grave? Was that why the land was so cheap? And where did you bury them? I asked, pouring myself more vodka. There was this guy, Seryoga, Anatolich began to explain. He said he'd seen a pit in the forest, deep as an abyss. So Seryoga suggested we just throw the bodies in there and then fill it up and forget about it. We justified it by telling ourselves we were at least giving these people a proper burial, in a way. Besides, from the looks of it, the pit was right next to an old cemetery. So, me and the guys, we wrapped the mummies in cloth and tossed them in. But we couldn't fill the hole. It's bottomless. You can throw a heavy boulder in there, and you won't even hear it land. Down there, it's just darkness. Outside, the wind gusted, and somewhere nearby, a sheet of metal rattled. The drunken foreman tensed up and glanced at the window. Open the second bottle, I said. Now you're talking. Anatolich placed the empty bottle under the table, opened the new one, and continued his story. It gets worse. Listen, I think by throwing those bodies into that abyss, we woke it up. The thing that scared the villagers so much they chose to die in their cellars rather than fall into its hands. Or rather, its hooks. Seryoga was the first one it took. It came at night, stabbed him with its hook, and dragged him away. Can you imagine? It's the color of ash, with no eyes. Why would it need them in the dark? On its face, there are only 2 nostrils and a mouth. And it's always laughing this horrible laugh, baring its sharp teeth. Its arms are long, reaching the ground, with no fingers, just hooks. Sharp hooks at the ends. They're not attached, they're made of flesh. They're a part of its body. Tell me, what is that thing? Every night, it would drag someone away. I lost trust in his words again. He had mentioned some hook-handed thing before, but I had ignored it. So that was it. Anatolich was trying to scare me with a monster story. You're delirious, I shouted. You're seeing things from all this booze. Oh yeah? Have you seen this? The foreman pulled open a desk drawer and took out a thick, old notebook with tattered corners, throwing it on the table in front of me. It's all in here. One of the residents of that dead village wrote this. My guys found this notebook in one of the houses. I wanted to throw it away so no one would find out, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. You feel sorry for the kid. His bent bicycle was lying right outside the gate. You know what, Anatolich? I'm going to call the police, and you can try to prove all this to them. My tongue slurred. We were both quite drunk. You don't believe me, the foreman breathed, disappointed. My feelings about our conversation were mixed. I didn't know what parts of his story were true and what was just a drunken fabrication. And what was this notebook he'd given me as proof? I opened it to the first page. The handwriting was just scribbles. In that dim light, and after all the alcohol, I couldn't make anything out. Anatolich was muttering something unintelligible, dozing off with his head bobbing. I felt the air in the trailer become stuffy, thick with the sour smell of alcohol. I wanted to open a window to get some fresh air. I stood up from my chair, took one step, and froze. Someone was outside. I could hear footsteps and a shrill, quiet laugh, so nasty it was like nails on a chalkboard. You said there was no one else here, I said, turning to Anatolich. Then who's that walking around out there? The foreman's eyes shot open. He saw me by the window and immediately jumped up, knocking his chair over. Get away from there, he screamed, shoving me so hard in the shoulder that I fell to the floor. I wanted to curse him out, call him a psycho, and say a lot more, but I didn't get the chance. The window shattered into a million pieces with a deafening crash. Anatolich hadn't been able to jump back in time. A massive, hook-shaped arm shot through the window. The hook pierced the man's shoulder clean through and violently dragged him outside. I lay on the glass-strewn floor, waiting for the vision to disappear. It was impossible to believe any of this was actually happening. It was too unreal. But nothing changed. The wind swayed the light curtains and rustled the pages of the notebook on the table. From outside, Anatolich screamed, "Help me." He had saved my life, taking my place. I couldn't just leave him to his fate. I couldn't let that thing tear him apart. I quickly got to my feet and looked out the window. A horrifying shadow with long arms was dragging the man across the ground. What could I do? If only I had a weapon. My eyes fell on a toolbox. I grabbed a hammer from it and ran outside. The night was dark, the sky covered in black clouds. The only source of light was the small window of the construction trailer. A few dozen feet away from me was something grotesque and bipedal. It was eyeless. Its arms resembled hooks, and Anatolich was caught on one of them. The creature was laughing hideously as it backed toward the forest, dragging my foreman with it. He was screaming, his fingers clawing at the grass, branches, anything he could grab. And I just stood there, hammer in hand, frozen. I was petrified with terror. I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. How could I possibly fight this demon? It still had one free hook, just for me. So I stood there as Anatolich was dragged into the forest, listening to his fading screams. Then I remembered I had a car and ran towards it. It was now my sanctuary, my escape from the madness of this night. I got behind the wheel, turned the key in the ignition with trembling fingers. The headlights pierced the darkness with bright beams, and I slowly drove towards the forest, towards the unknown. The lights illuminated a trail of blood on the grass leading toward the trees. The blood was fresh, bright against the dark ground. I braked at the edge of the forest. There, among the pine trees, I could see grave crosses, blackened with age. An old cemetery. I never knew it was there, though it made sense. A village on the riverbank, graves in the forest. Life and death always walk hand in hand. I stared ahead, gripping the steering wheel, listening to the silence of the forest. The car windows were shut tight and quickly fogged up from my breath. But despite the stuffiness, goosebumps crawled all over my skin. I don't know what I was hoping to see. Maybe I was waiting for Anatolich to break free and run out of the forest so we could drive away from this place together. Peering into the woods, I saw a black, round hole in the ground. It was so big my entire car could have fallen into it. And suddenly, at its edge, two hooks appeared. They dug into the earth, and then it leapt out of the hole, a creature with a wide, grinning smile. I immediately threw the car into reverse, but the thing took two lightning-fast leaps and was right next to the car. Its hooked limbs pierced the hood. Acting on pure instinct, I yanked the wheel to the right and floored the gas, aiming for the nearest tree. The impact was strong. The car shuddered. The creature's eyeless head twitched, its teeth bared in a snarl. Its hook-like arms flew up and slammed down on the roof. The creature was pinned between my bumper and the tree, unable to free itself. I quickly shifted into reverse and sped away from that spot, leaving the monster, practically torn in half, lying at the base of the tree. It wasn't until much later that I dared to return, and only once, on a sunny day. I inspected the spot where the hook-handed creature had lain, but there was nothing there. Where could it have gone, mangled as it was? I tried not to linger. I glanced inside the trailer and found the old notebook Anatolich had shown me. I took it with me and left. It turned out to be the diary of one of the local residents. He described what was happening as the village was dying out. After reading the entries, the picture in my head became clearer, yet many questions remained. The entries read, September 14, 1984. If I remembered to tear a page off the calendar each day, then I'm not mistaken about the date. There's no one left to ask anyway. I'm not even sure if there's anyone else left in the village. I wish I could just get on my bike and ride away from here, but I know Komori is out there. Everyone who went outside screamed and was gone instantly. He's faster than a wolf. I don't have a gun to kill him a second time. Or maybe Komori never really died the first time. Then what happened to him? Why did he change so much? I have 2 jugs of water left and enough food for a couple of days. When it runs out, I'll have to raid Grandpa's winter supplies. Who's going to stop me now? Grandpa went outside with an axe and never came back. I'm sure Komori dragged him into his underworld. September 15, 1984. I've been sitting in the dark for several days now, with the shutters closed. Light only gets into the house through a tiny crack. I sleep on the floor so the bed doesn't creak. I walk around the house trying not to make a sound. My food is dry bread and soaked grains. My toilet is a bucket covered with a rag. I can't even take it outside. Komori is walking around out there. Last night, I heard him catch someone again. Strange, I thought there was no one left alive in the village. Some woman was screaming, "Help me. No one can help us now." September 16, 1984. I'm keeping this notebook like a ship's log, lost in the middle of the ocean. I'm recording the situation. Maybe I'm the last survivor, or maybe not. Maybe others are hiding in their homes, quiet as mice. There's no point in keeping secrets anymore, so I'll write about everything. If something happens to me, let people know what happened here. My name is Andrei Shabatkov, I am 16 years old. The only living relative I had was my grandfather, and he recently disappeared without a trace. I live in the village of Luchka. A lot of terrible things have happened here since September 1st. On that day, after the first day of school, a group of children went for a walk together and didn't come home that evening. 2 days later, they were found in Komori's shed. I don't know what that guy's real name was. Everyone called him Komori, Gloomy. He had hung them on iron meat hooks and didn't even deny what he'd done. He said with a satisfied smile, "Yes, I killed them." He had been a quiet man his whole life, which is how he got his nickname. But then it was like a dam broke inside him. He laughed and couldn't stop. They beat him, but he just laughed and laughed. He told the parents to their faces that he had done the right thing because he was fulfilling the will of the darkness. Komori was a tall, hulking guy who was always silent and smiling. People thought he was a kind soul, but it turned out he was a monster. He wouldn't have escaped justice anyway, but the people wanted to punish him themselves before the police found out. Our villagers brought a coffin, threw Komori in, nailed the lid shut, and carried him to the cemetery. I was there too. I wanted to watch. The men dragged the coffin along the ground with ropes. It bounced and jolted, but all you could hear from inside was Komori laughing and screaming. One of the men kicked the coffin and said, "You will never see the light of day again. You will suffocate in the dark until you die. And if there is a hell, then eternal torment awaits you." The coffin was made of thick planks, but I clearly heard Komori's last words. "The darkness does not punish those like me. The darkness rewards. I will rise from the earth and drag you all down with me into the abyss." The next day, the villagers were horrified. They were ordered to dig up the coffin, but it was impossible. Where the fresh grave had been, there was now a deep chasm, round like a pore on the face of the earth. An abyss had opened up in our cemetery. The villagers thought it was a strange coincidence. Komori had fallen into hell itself. Maybe they weren't wrong. And Komori wasn't wrong either. For a while, the abyss was silent. But recently, some guys I know were walking nearby and heard laughter coming from the black void. That same night, he returned. He leapt out of the abyss, looking nothing like himself, gifted by the darkness. I wouldn't have thought it was Komori, but I recognized his horrible laugh. His hands have become like huge fishing hooks. He impales people with them and drags them away. I don't know if anyone managed to escape the village. It was chaos. I only had time to hide. For another couple of weeks, the diary's author monotonously described how he survived in confinement. His last entry read, October 1st, 1984. It's cold. I can't light the stove. Komori is still walking the streets. I often hear his laugh. I'm low on supplies. There's no water left. I'm finishing the last of the juice from a jar of compote. Why did Grandpa put so much sugar in it? I have to try to escape from here. It's my only chance of survival. I won't survive the cold anyway, especially without food. I'm leaving this notebook here. If I can't be a living witness to what happened, let my records tell people what took place here. Finishing the diary, I remembered Anatolich's words. You feel sorry for the kid. His bent bicycle was lying right outside the gate. It truly is a shame that no one managed to escape the killer's tenacious grasp. The words on the yellowed pages seemed to whisper of the dead village's dark past, and I understood that I could never build my tourist lodge on this gravesite. This land is cursed, and anyone who tries to live on it will be in danger. My dream has collapsed. What should I do with my property? Is it even mine? What difference does a piece of paper make when it's Komori's territory? So, I decided to share my story, to make it public. Maybe someone can give me advice on what to do with this cursed land.